Hi everyone, and welcome to And So On. My name is Lisa, and today I'm going to tell you all about how I deal with PDF patterns and how I store them. And also at the end, if you stick around, I'm going to show you my latest fabric haul from Blackbird Fabrics. So we are here again in my kitchen, and two people actually commented the other day, and they said, "What's that thing hanging in your window? Is that like earphones hanging, or what is that?" So you can see right there, it's actually a statue made out of metal, and it's a woman lifting up a baby, lifting up a child. And my best friend Sarah, who was living in Malawi at the time, brought that back for me when I had my daughter, Audrey, my firstborn. So that's what that is. And occasionally, is it there now? Yeah, occasionally my husband hangs his wedding ring on there. Just for storage. I don't know if there's something Freudian about that, but he occasionally hangs his wedding ring there. So today I'm going to talk about patterns, PDF patterns. So I mostly do PDF patterns. I have some paper patterns, and I have select magazines. You guys have seen me use those before. But I would say the majority of patterns that I do are PDF patterns, and mostly because it's cheaper and it's more convenient. If I'm going to get a pattern here at a shop, it's going to be significantly more expensive, and I don't tend to order patterns. Occasionally I will order from Vogue, and I will have some sent to me. And I have bought some indie patterns lately. I bought the Fen dress. I bought, what was the other one I bought? I can't think of it, but I have, I do have some, but I do mostly use PDF patterns. So how do I put them together? How do I store them? What do I do with them? All those PDF questions. Okay, so let's start with how I organize them. So I've started now organizing mine on the Files app on my iPad. So you guys got to know, I do pretty much everything on my iPad. I run my whole business from my iPad. I record these videos on my iPad. I edit these videos on my iPad. I do everything. And so the only thing that's a little frustrating sometimes is printing from my iPad, because you don't have the option to scale or do actual size. That's sometimes a little irritating, but really I do everything from my iPad. So I store them all on my iPad. And if you listen to the Love to Sew podcast when they were talking all about patterns, I listened to what Helen and Caroline suggested, and I've now uploaded them all to the cloud, and I've also divided them into categories. So I'm going to do a little video here kind of showing you around how I do mine. But essentially, I have a pattern section. I divide them by tops, bottoms, dresses, kids, athletic, etc. I also keep the Sew Over It patterns separate. I don't know why. I kind of did that because they were my first patterns, and so it just sort of worked out that way. I'll probably integrate them into the new system pretty soon. And then when you go into dresses, tops, etc., I have now started doing a file for each pattern, because sometimes I just want to, at a glance, see what patterns I have. And if all of the files are separate, I'm kind of going through and going, oh yeah, that's Jazz Ready to Sew, option A, option B, all the different things. So that's how I store them on my computer. And I'm definitely someone who, if I want to make something, I want to make it right now. I want to download it, I want to print it, I want to get it done. So how do I put them together? Oh, and in terms of copy shop, I have not done that because I don't think there's a reasonably inexpensive way to do that yet in Canada. I know that the UK and the US both have a really great option for that, and I wish we did, but we really don't. And so Staples, which would be our normal kind of copy place, is like $10 or $12 to print it, and sometimes it's that much to buy it. I can't justify that. I am going to go to an independent place near me soon. I just thought of them on Queen Street near where I live, and see if maybe they can do it at a cheaper price. If I could do it for $3 or $4, that would be worth doing. But more than that, I'd rather just do it at home. So I put mine together with tape. I'm a tape girl, and the reason is I did try using a glue stick, but for me, I found really quickly the glue would, after it dried, would crystallize and they'd fall apart. And especially after storing them for a couple months and folding them and whatever, I just found it wasn't as, not as resilient to have the glue. So I use tape. This is a tape dispenser I got at Costco, and it came with 6 rolls of Scotch tape. And this, like, having the dispenser is great because you're just literally, you can do it with one hand. I also don't trim my pattern. So if it's a really small pattern, that I only have, 4 or 5 pieces or 6 pieces to tile together, then maybe I'll trim. But generally, I put mine together on a window. So I'm looking right now at a huge window in our house. It's probably like 5 feet by 8 feet, something like that. Really big window. You can also use a patio door, like if you have a sliding patio door in your house or your condo or whatever. That's a really great option. By putting it together on a window, it creates a light box effect. And so I can overlap 2 pieces of paper and see where they line up, and I don't have to trim them. So I save the trimming option, which is really huge. I just tape the top one to my window, and then I tape the next row to the first row. So there's only one. Someone said, oh gosh, like you have tape marks all over your window. No, because it's just the top one, and I peel it off, and I use good quality tape, and so that's not an issue at all. So I tape them all, and then I will either take that whole thing down and cut it on the floor, or I will actually just cut around each pattern piece depending on how it's laid out, and I'll just cut it literally right off the window and cut around them. And so I find that's pretty great as well. So I don't have a problem with that. Now, something I just discovered today, because I've been printing a lot of patterns lately, because I'm going on my trip and I have a lot of things to make. More on that pretty soon. I'm narrowing it down, and I've got a couple things printed and cut, so we're getting there. But I ran out of printer paper, and I used like every spare piece of paper in my house that I could find. And what I was left with was photo paper. Now, I know photo paper is generally more expensive, but I had photo paper left over from forever ago. And if you happen to see photo paper really cheap at like Costco or even the dollar store sometimes, it doesn't matter the quality, because I'm not printing a photo, I'm just printing a pattern. And I'll show you. So one thing I printed out today was the Megan Nielsen free underwear pattern called the Acacia Undies. And if you listen to the Love to Sew podcast, I think it's Caroline who suggests that when you're cutting a t-shirt or something else out of jersey, keep an underwear pattern handy and cut panties out of the scraps, which is brilliant. So I haven't done underwear yet. This will be my first try. But because I ran out of regular paper, I printed the end on photo paper. But the great thing about it is now it's stiff, right? Like it's already, so one of the problems with using regular paper sometimes is that it's really flimsy and it's easy to kind of cut the edge of it, and some people then trace a well-loved pattern onto thicker cardstock or whatever so that they have a thicker version. Well, this is like the same thing, except it's already printed on there and done. This is the gusset for the underwear, and it's already in a nice, thick form. So that's just a little thing I discovered today that I thought I'd pass on. If you happen to, see photo paper on really cheap somewhere, this is a good thing to do. And I actually think I'm going to keep doing it. I used to print tons and tons of photos, so I do have leftover photo paper. Okay, so once I have my pattern, I do not trace them, I just cut them out. That's the way I do it. Once or twice I've had to go back and reprint because I've chosen the wrong size, but now that I'm getting better at figuring out what size I am, that's not as much of an issue. So in general, I just cut out my size and I keep it. And I store my patterns one of 3 ways. So if, for instance, here I have the autumn dress, and I've just hung this. Oh, I hate it when it does that. Here we go. I've just hung this on a pants hanger. And this one's decorated because I used to do this with my scrapbooking. So this has been in my house forever, and I used to do it to hang scrapbook pages, with those 12 by 12 pages. But now I do this, and the great thing about it is because there's room here at the top, I don't have to worry about the edges getting crumpled. It's held flat, so I don't have to iron it before I'm tracing it out. I put all the smaller pieces in the front so that they're all there, and the larger pieces in the back. And I just hang them up in my space. Now, I'm not going to do this for all of them, but I would do it for one that maybe I've cut, but I've cut the pattern, but I haven't had time to cut the fabric. And so I will hang it like this, and either hang it, I have a roller clothes line thing upstairs. So sometimes I'll do that, and sometimes I'll just hang it on whatever's handy, a hook on the wall kind of thing. Anyway, this is a really great way. The other thing I'll use this for is if I have kind of random patterns, like you know, like a free bodice that I printed off, or a little something for my kids that I'm not sure about, or something that I don't know if I'm going to use again. I bundle them all together and I hang them on one of these, and then I can just literally like fold through and go, oh yeah, there's that sleeve that I like, or an extra pocket pattern, you know, like little things like that I just want to be able to kind of flip through. So that's one thing I do, and I quite like that. Another thing I do, because I don't like having to iron my patterns when I've stored them and put them away, is I also create these little, and again, everything's white, so the lighting's terrible, but maybe I'll put it down here. I just make these out of folded up paper. So I have a roll of paper. You could use butcher paper, you could use whatever, and it's not pretty. I mean, I could make it prettier. I just use painter's tape, but by doing this is the I just write on it, Ursula dress by Hand London. Usually I write the size. I didn't in this case. And then I can keep all of my pattern pieces in here, and I only have to fold them once. So I'm not folding it into small little pieces. And they, obviously this files away to nothing. I have a little slot next to one of my chests and drawers, and I just have 5 or 6 of them, yeah, about that many, just in right next to each other, and all I have to do is kind of flip and go down the line and find the one that I want. So this is kind of a DIY way of sharing it. One thing, I tried to use washi tape to make it look pretty, and it fell apart pretty quickly. So I would suggest using painter's tape or gaffer's tape, or, you know, they have cute ones now of you know, different wide tapes and stuff. So, but this has worked really well for me. And then the last way I store them are in these zippered pockets, and I got these in the dollar store, and someone else, I think it was the Stitch Sisters, showed this method, but I couldn't find them inexpensively. Like when I went to Staples, or even when I went online, I couldn't find them inexpensively. So then I saw these just before Christmas at the dollar store, and I was like, yes, score, and I picked up, I think, I don't know, 12 or 13 of them. Now, one thing you could do is, because they come in different colors, you could always have, you know, your tops in one color and your kids' stuff in another color or whatever. I'm not that organized yet. I just thought of that now. But I have, for instance, this one here has 2 top patterns for my girls. They're obviously small-ish patterns. I fold them once, I fit them in here. You could be really fancy and put a picture and blah, blah, blah. All I do is I just make sure that something that has the title on it is on the outside so that it shows through and I can read it. Like I said, I could get fancy with it, but I'm not. This one is all baby patterns, okay? Little things, right, that'll get lost. So baby hat, baby gift stuff, I know that's all going to be in here. And then on the other side are the slipper boots. So I kind of think of it as being 2 in 1, unless it's packed, which it never is. And this just slides. So it's great. And then these 2 here are patterns that I traced from that My Image magazine for kids that I showed you. And again, I just made sure that something was showing with the size and the number. So this is the top, 152 centimeters. This one here is the tunic, 152 centimeters, so I know what's in here. So I think I'm going to use this a lot. And for instance, this underwear pattern would be perfect in one of those, right? I don't need to make it, I don't need to hang it, I don't need a big envelope, I just need something little, and I think this will work perfectly. So that is all I can think of about my PDF patterns. If you have any other questions about how I deal with PDF patterns or whatever, I can't think of anything, but if there's something that you have a question about, please do list it below and I will be happy to respond either in the comments or in my next video. All right, that's part 1, and click over to part 2 where you can see my fabric haul.